Well, just as a law in a different state was set to go into effect, restricting who could purchase firearms concerning age, a federal judge stepping up and blocking that. That's the headline out of Colorado. With a federal judge halting their new gun purchase age limit. Welcome in Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk, and we've been discussing off and on about gun litigation and laws that are put in place where people ultimately sue. We've got cases here in Illinois that range from state court and federal courts, and the question of can the state regulate the sale of commonly owned firearms like semi-automatic rifles or handguns with magazine capacities over 15 or semi-automatic shotguns. Of course, we have this law that Governor J.B. Pritzker in Illinois signed back on January 10th when it went into effect, banning future sale of such things and requiring those who had them before the ban went into effect to register come January 1st with Illinois State Police a sworn affidavit about the firearms they own. And that's all tied up in the courts right now while the law is still in effect. But over in Colorado, you have a law that was set to go into effect yesterday, but the federal judge in that case saying, no, it's on hold. So federal judge Monday halting Colorado's law, raising the age to purchase firearms to 21. And let's go ahead and check this out. One of my colleagues over in Colorado putting this out for the Center Square. The preliminary injunction issued by U.S. District Court Judge Philip Brimmer. It came the same day as Senate Bill 23169 was supposed to take effect over in Colorado. So the injunction states that Governor Jared Polis, in his official capacity, as well as other state government officials, they're enjoined effective immediately from enforcing SB 23169. Now, you've got some gun store owners that had this argument, and whenever the measure was signed back in April by Jared Polis, they went ahead and filed this lawsuit, and the bill had the effective date later on, which was yesterday being the effective date. But the court, they said that they find that the individual plaintiffs have shown a likelihood of succeeding on the merits of the question of whether the Second Amendment applies to 18 to 20-year-olds. Because that's a big question. It's a question that we've seen elsewhere about whether or not we have a two-tier citizenship. If you're born in this country, you're a citizen. Do you not have rights until you get to 21? I know that when it comes to contract law and things along those lines, and when it comes to parental being a guardian of sorts, 18 seems to be that threshold. But should 18-year-olds be able to go out and purchase firearms? And you see this as a push to try to limit individuals' ability to purchase firearms after you've seen various stories of, mass violence where people use firearms and go in and kill or injure a lot of people by shooting them. So interesting case out of the state of Colorado. How will that impact other cases? Now, one thing to consider is when these are ultimately decided by appeals courts, really just impacts that appeals district. So that's not the Seventh Circuit where we're at in Illinois, where you've got totally separate lawsuits that are moving through. So that's a pretty big story. I know over in California there was also a ruling by a federal judge about butterfly knives, I believe, and some people highlighting that is an indication of what could possibly come out of future court proceedings concerning the ability to own and carry certain types of firearms. But effective immediately, even on the effective date of Colorado's law, you've got a federal judge that has blocked that law on gun purchase age limits. And ultimately, again, the court finds that the individual plaintiffs have shown a likelihood of succeeding on the merits on the question of whether the Second Amendment applies to 18 to 20-year-olds. Now, in Illinois, we have the FOID card, the Firearm Owner's Identification Card. If you're under the age of 21, you have to get parental permission. And that's something that's coming to a head here in Illinois after the Highland Park shooting, where the father of the suspect is now looking to have a case against him dismissed. We'll get to the particulars of this because I think it's important to really look at the Highland Park shooting and how we know the individual suspects got the firearms. And that's despite clear and present danger reports being issued by local law enforcement, Illinois State Police, and ultimately the father of the suspect signing an affidavit saying that his son, under the age of 21, is able to get a firearm owner identification card. State Police granting that. The individual able to go and purchase firearms under the age of 21. So we'll get to the particulars of the father in this case in Illinois, ultimately looking to have that the charges against him dropped. So what's going on there? We'll touch on that, and then we'll also kind of do a little bit of an overview of some other gun laws that are being proposed elsewhere throughout the country. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Independence Day 2022, an absolutely tragic day after suspects got on a rooftop in Highland Park and shot into the 4th of July parade, killing 7, injuring dozens, and ultimately the suspect being found. And hearing the details of the case, it's tough. There's no question. But then when you get into the further details of the suspect and his previous run-ins with law enforcement, you get a totally different picture of something that you think there should have been some backstops to prevent this thing from happening. And one of those backstops is clear and present danger reports that local police filed to Illinois State Police about the suspect, Robert Cremo III, having had police arrive to his house multiple times in 2019. But despite that, the father signed an affidavit to Illinois State Police saying that his son was fine to get a firearm owner identification card, the card that's required here in the state of Illinois for anyone who wants to own or purchase firearms or ammunition. So yesterday, the judge was asked up in Cook County in Lake County, rather, to dismiss charges against the father because the father faces 7 counts of breaking the law, ultimately 7 counts of reckless conduct because he signed an affidavit allowing for his son to get a FOID card despite knowing that he could be a danger to himself or others. And that's the allegation here. But you've got the father here, Cremo Jr., asking a judge through his attorney to drop the charges, saying that they're too vague and the state law is unconstitutionally vague. But when you get down into the detail here, who else should be held accountable? You reserve your judgment for maybe a jury if this goes to trial. But who else should be held accountable here? I mean, local police in Highland Park arrived to Robert Cremo III's house, the suspect in the Highland Park shooting, in September of 2019, and that was after it was a phone call coming in that he was going to kill himself. And then in April, that was April of 2019, he got a visit from police after some threats that he was trying to kill himself. And then in September of 2019, police arrived again after there were questions of him threatening family members. And I think in that case, they even confiscated knives, as had been previously reported. But then the father, Robert Cremo Jr., came in and said that those were his knives, and then the police gave them back. But regardless, local police issued a clear and present danger report to Illinois State Police. And Illinois State Police had that report, but when Robert Cremo III, through an affidavit from his father, Robert Cremo Jr., filed for an application to get a firearm owner identification card, Illinois State Police didn't uphold that clear and present danger report. In previous reporting, and even the Illinois State Police saying that the rules were murky in whether or not they could uphold a clear and present danger report if nobody was pursuing that. And that seemed to be the case here, according to Illinois State Police. But you can see where some of these measures may be coming from a good place, but unless they're actually implemented, doesn't seem to really work, and that bad actors will still go out and conduct themselves in harmful ways. But you've got the father here asking for a judge to dismiss the 7 counts against him, and that's 7 counts, 1 for each individual that was shot and killed in Highland Park. And the prosecutor is ultimately saying that, listen, they committed reckless conduct when they, according to the law, by any means lawful or unlawful, recklessly perform an act or acts that cause great bodily harm or permanent disability or disfigurement of another person. So you've got, again, the allegation that the father conducted himself recklessly by signing an affidavit saying that his son under the age of 21 can get a firearm owner identification card despite local police having to come to the house multiple times because of threats of violence, including violence against himself and others. And the suspect, Robert Cremo Jr., or rather Robert Cremo III, legally purchasing those firearms because he was able to get a firearm owner identification card. So they have tightened up some of the rules with Illinois State Police, but should there be even more? Or should this be an indication that you can have all of these regulations on the individual, but it's not necessarily going to stop these types of acts from happening? Because you can even rewind all the way back to 2019 in the Aurora shooting where a individual had a FOID card revoked after trying to apply for a concealed carry license, and that triggered being able to find an out-of-state conviction, a felony, that led to his FOID card being revoked. But despite that being revoked, the individual still had a firearm and went into I think it was the Henry Pratt building, and shot and killed coworkers. So that case up in Highland Park in Lake County, rather fascinating, especially when we're talking about age limits. And even the looking at the previous segment with the Colorado law that's now on hold that restricts who can buy firearms to just those over 21. But some of the other headlines I've got here, House Democrats in the U.S. Congress, they are repeating a demand for a 1,000% tax on so-called assault weapons, and this would ultimately make a $2,000 firearm have a $20,000 tax on it, which really puts the Second Amendment out of reach for 99% of the people out there who don't have several tens of thousands of dollars just laying around. Obviously, political posturing, but still over in Congress, you've got Democrats looking at that particular possibility, if such a thing would ever come about. Some interesting headlines when it comes to the Second Amendment, and hopefully you are waking up with a little bit more information to start your day. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Follow me anywhere, Bishop on Air, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. And for those of you still waiting for the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals to issue their ruling on the challenge against Illinois' gun and magazine ban, still waiting. So that's your update on the state's gun and magazine ban. Still waiting. And also still waiting for the Illinois Supreme Court to announce when exactly they're going to release their ruling on the special legislation and equal protections challenge of Illinois' gun and magazine ban. I guess patience is a virtue.